Hello everyone, welcome to Within the Frame. I'm Kim Young-jun. North Korea recently launched 3 strategic cruise missiles in the space of a week, doing so for the first time since September 2021. From solid-fuel hypersonic missiles to cruise missiles, Pyongyang has been test-firing a variety of weapons, dialing up tensions on the peninsula. Renowned experts have been pointing out that it is highly likely the reclusive regime will continue with major provocations, even risking war. Now, is this really so? And what could North Korea's intentions be? For more on this, we invite Professor Kim Young-jun from Korea National Defense University. Welcome to the show, Professor Kim.
Thank you for having me.
And we also have Dr. Mark Berry from the International Journal on World Peace. Good to see you, Dr. Berry.
Good to be with you both.
All right, as Professor Kim is an expert on national security, I'd like to first ask about North Korea's latest provocations to Professor Kim before moving on to regional politics and relations, as Dr. Berry's expertise lies there. All right, first question, Professor Kim. North Korea has repeatedly test-fired strategic cruise missiles recently. Now, how is this cruise missile different from ballistic ones? And how is this new type, Pulhwasal 331, different from the Hwasal 1 and 2?
Yeah, North Korea launched a strategic cruise missile called the Provocation 3 from submarine, according to North Korea. And this is already third test in only 1 week. So North Korea is already focused on the cruise missile rather than ballistic missile, which they try to have a test over the decade. But this is the clear reason. North Korea wants to build a nuclear armed navy to counter so-called extra threat, U.S. combined defense system, and they focus the cruise missile because of it is not violation of the UN sanction, and also this is possible to have a tactical nuclear warhead, and also these types of the submarine launch cruise missiles is very difficult to be detected due to its low flying altitude and also precision strike capability. So in terms of cost-benefit analysis, this is one of the best options for North Korea to attack ROC US.
All right. Well, Professor Kim, you just mentioned that launching a cruise missile is not a direct violation of UNSC resolutions, but why is this so?
Technically, the United Nations sanction already did sanction on the North Korea the nuclear test, also as well as the ballistic missile test at the time. And North Korea tried to have a re-entry system capability. Also, this aim at the more U.S. continent for negotiation. So that's why at the time, the ballistic missile and also nuclear test is a direct target of the United Nations sanction. Also, China, Russia at the time is very support this sanction, but now it's China, Russia is not part of the UN sanction. Also, North Korea enjoyed to use cruise missile system in avoiding UN sanction directly.
All right, I see your point. Well, Professor Kim, following the very first cruise missile launch for this year on the 24th, like you already said, Pyongyang test-fired submarine-launched cruise missiles. But what could have been North Korea's intentions?
Submarine launch missile is very dangerous and very efficient to attack as a surprise attack because it's very difficult to detect enemy submarine rather than the land-based missile because the satellite is able to detect the land-based missile as an early warning. So tactical nuclear attack from submarine is an asymmetric warfare capability, and in terms of cost-benefit analysis, because North Korea has a very weak conventional capability against ROC US, this is one of the best choice for North Korea to focus on and invest these types of sophisticated and asymmetric military capability, including spy satellite, multiple warhead missile, hypersonic missile, and submarine launched nuclear missile. This is the very natural process of the Kim Jong-un's top choice.
All right, I see. Well, Professor Kim, state-run media, the KCNA, pointed out that Kim Jong-un also discussed issues related to the building of a nuclear-powered submarine and other new types of warships. Now, as far as I know, last September, Pyongyang unveiled what it claimed was its first tactical nuclear attack submarine, which is diesel-powered, right? What is the difference between this and a nuclear-powered one?
Yeah, the nuclear power, the submarine is not the same as the nuclear, the nuclear missile. So the nuclear power submarine is much better than diesel the submarine because of it is able to have a more nuclear warhead than diesel power, and also it lasts for maximum 3 months in the water. So which is allowing more operation capability against the enemy. So Kim Jong-un, that's why emphasized the nuclear power submarine, and this was right after Kim Jong-un's visit and presidential summit with Putin last September. So if Putin visits in North Korea this year, it will be naturally possible for North Korea to ask nuclear power submarine technique from Russia, because Russia is one of the best technique for nuclear submarine.
All right. Now, Professor Kim, North Korea has been unveiling its diversified missile system ranging from solid-fuel hypersonic missiles to new type cruise missiles under development. Now, what is the intention behind showing off this kind of weapons?
I think North Korea already gave up the kind of a negotiation possibility at the Hanoi summit, and its diversification of the missile system is a natural choice for strengthening asymmetric warfare capabilities. So technically, cruise missile, as I mentioned, not violation of the United Nations sanction. In terms of North Korean point of view, cruise missile plus tactical nuclear warhead and plus submarine are one of the greatest military attack against the U.S. The ROC combined defense system, and more usable weapon in actual conflict against the ROC and U.S., especially U.S. forces in Korea, Japan, Guam, and others. So rather than the long-range ballistic missile against the U.S. continent, this is a more usable and more dangerous weapon system against the ROC and U.S.
All right. Well, it's quite interesting to hear North Korea gave up negotiating possibility. Well, we'll get to that later on. But before that, Dr. Berry, let's move on to international relations. So North Korea said Russian President Vladimir Putin expressed willingness to visit Pyongyang at an early date. But how do you see the possibility of Putin's Pyongyang visit, and when would it be?
Well, Putin will run again for election. I think he intends to be president for life, much like President Xi. So since the election's in March, we presume that April, May, June may be more likely for a Putin visit. But I recall saying on your program, I guess in September, that when Kim visited Putin in the Russian Far East, he looked quite wary and apprehensive of Putin. And you can imagine how he will feel when Putin is on North Korean soil. Putin is there to extract what he wants and to leave a few rubles on the table, so to speak, for his trouble. I think Kim will get the appearance of a visit, the appearance of some of allied solidarity, but in reality, Putin is cunning enough to put Kim over a barrel and put him at a great disadvantage, which is precisely why this is a short-term relationship, and Kim knows that. He knows that in the end, he can trust Putin much like Prigozhin could trust Putin, which is you really can't. So it'll be a very, very short-term benefit. And again, I think Putin is simply trying to get the munitions he needs to hold out in the war against Ukraine until the U.S. presidential election. And a lot of people are saying here stateside that no matter who wins, they're going to try to come up with a settlement and try to end that war by early 2025.
All right, Dr. Berry. So you're saying relationship between North Korea and Russia is quite fragile. And does that mean if the Ukrainian war ends within this year, the relationship between North Korea and Russia would be, over?
It's never over, but it's not a trustworthy relationship. I mean, it all began when Kim Il-sung went to visit Stalin in 1949. And Stalin made him wait for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And Kim was in no position to complain. So this is the way that the Russians treat smaller states on their periphery. And Putin is in that tradition, even if it's not technically a communist system. So these are treacherous neighbors. The relationship with China is more complex, but the one with Russia is very much, it's much more extractive than the older brother, younger brother relationship between China and North Korea. So Kim has every reason to be wary in the longer term.
All right, I see. Now, Dr. Barry, North Korean officials also met with a visiting senior Chinese diplomat in Pyongyang, and the two sides agreed to continue to strengthen technical cooperation. But how did you see such words?
Well, since the founding of the People's Republic of China in 1949, almost right away, diplomatic relations between North Korea and China were established. So 2024 is the 75th anniversary of diplomatic ties. So it's very understandable for a reciprocal visit by a Chinese high-level diplomatic official to North Korea in reciprocation for a vice foreign minister's visit to Beijing just about a week or so previous. Excuse me. At the same time, there's no sign of a visit by President Xi anytime in the near future. And I would predict that probably to honor the 75th anniversary of diplomatic ties, that Kim may be compelled to visit Beijing by the fall, let's say between October, November, December. And he wants to have something in his hand to show that he can still be depended upon, but at the same time, not be bossed around and made to feel like a junior partner. So it's a very delicate relationship, and he's seemed or felt rather empty-handed since the failure of the Hanoi summit in February of 2019. So this is a kind of a make or break year in terms of North Korea's relations with China at 75 years.
All right, make or break year. Now, Dr. Barry, we cannot leave out U.S. position. During a meeting between U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan and China's top diplomat in Thailand, the U.S. asked China to use its influence on North Korea over a series of provocations. But do you believe China will play the role the U.S. actually wants?
Well, gone are the days of the six-party talks or the four-party talks that preceded them in the late 1990s, when China had a useful role to play. In fact, in the early 1990s, China played a fantastic role. I have all sorts of stories about hidden things that happened that were done by China to see an improvement between the U.S. and North Korea, because they believed in the value of diplomatic cross-recognition in many ways, as long as they retain their influence with the North. But today, China has far less influence than ever before. I think North Korea really never forgave China for supporting the sanctions in the UN in 2017. And of course, China provided the airplane, the Air China airliner, for Kim to visit or to meet Trump in Singapore in June of 2018. But since the failure of the Hanoi summit, China basically has a much more distant relationship with North Korea. And in fact, I think it hasn't been stressed enough that in Mike Pompeo's memoirs as Secretary of State, he noted that when he met with Kim, Kim complained about his relationship with China and the fact that he wanted to put China, North Korea in the same position as Tibet and Xinjiang and other places where and Mongolia, basically. So the relationship between China and North Korea is one where Kim does not want to be seen as a junior partner or as a client state, because this ultimately threatens his independence and sovereignty. So this is why it's such a delicate relationship. At the same time, both countries share a nearly 900-mile border, and you can't wish them away. They're there permanently. So this is a very sensitive relationship, but I think from the U.S. point of view, it's a pro forma request. Jake Sullivan was right to bring it up, but it does not mean that there's any expectation on the U.S. part that China will change its behavior either in the UN Security Council or in any kind of serious sanctions enforcement.
All right, not much expectation for China. I see. Now, I believe this will be our key question for today's segment. Dr. Barry, I'd like to first ask you this question. Many reports are coming out regarding tensions on the peninsula, while some say the situation is more dangerous than it has been at any time since early June 1950, while others also say North Korea's aggressive wars are just an empty threat, as they have no reason to go to war, as they are enjoying ties with Russia for now. Now, what is your view on this?
Well, behind me, in the wide shot, you can see there are the three books written by these three authors who, on the same day, January 11th, this month, came out with two different op-eds, which were rather short, but were rather earth-shaking, at least for the Korean analytical affairs community. And they went viral, particularly the op-ed in the 38 North website by Robert Carlin and Siegfried Hecker. Bob Carlin is the analyst. He's been doing this for 50 years with the CIA and with the State Department, and in the private sector with Stanford University and with the Middlebury Institute. Sig Hecker was the former director of the Los Alamos Nuclear Laboratory in New Mexico, and he made at least, I believe, 4 trips to the Yongbyon nuclear reactor site in North Korea, the last being in 2010. A year ago, he came out with a book you see behind me called Hinge Points, in which he bemoans the failure of the Hanoi summit that really failed for no really good reason. It was a failure, lack of preparation and willingness to take things step at a time by the U.S. On its part, and what I would regard as a tremendous inexperience and poorly trained staff on the part of Kim Jong-un in dealing with President Trump. So basically, this op-ed went viral. The moment I saw it, I said, this is earth-shaking. And Mr. Carlin and Dr. Hecker wrote it to be rather provocative, and you need to read it 2, even 3 times. Read it very carefully. And it's gotten a lot of responses, both in news articles such as on the BBC, Al Jazeera, and also by some very well-honed critiques by people like Sumi Terry on the Foreign Affairs website, and Sue Kim in Nikkei Asia from Japan, which was out today. But they don't really deal with the nitty-gritty issues in great detail, and therefore they're expressing their own points of view and not so much the foreboding feeling that you get from reading these articles. And in summary, basically what these two authors say, and also backed up on certain key points by Ambassador Robert Gallucci, who wrote his op-ed in the National Interest, again, as I said, on the same day. The overall message is that the Kim dynasty had endeavored since 1990 to normalize relations with the United States. And it ultimately failed in 2019, and it went swiftly downhill in February of 2019. And I don't think that Carlin and Hecker adequately explain why this was so important to the Kim dynasty. They simply say that they wanted to have relations with the U.S. in order to keep a buffer between Russia and China. I would put it a little more harshly, which is that the only valuable thing for North Korea is for its independence and sovereignty, and for it never to be threatened, and for that independence and sovereignty to be led by the Kim dynasty, whichever Kim is currently the leader. And so that is threatened by larger major powers, particularly those that have aided it in the past. And so therefore, my feeling is it's a matter of national survival to be able to use balance of power. You know, this is going back to realist theory of international relations 101, Hans Morgenthau, and Henry Kissinger also espoused it in many of his writings. You need to have balance of power. And this is something that the Kim dynasty has been trying to apply in its relations with its neighbors of China and Russia. Put it another way, and this was said directly by a senior North Korean official to my boss back in 2005 when he visited North Korea and had a one-on-one meeting for 3.5 hours with Kim Jong-un later on. But the senior official told him that North Korea sees China, Russia, the US, and Japan all as imperialist powers. But it sees the United States as the most benign of those four imperialist powers. So that's been the running assumption all these years. But basically what President Trump did, and aided and abetted by John Bolton, and it was not out of ignorance, it was out of stupidity, and it was out of callousness and carelessness, and Trump being distracted and disinterested in being able to negotiate in a slow and careful manner. And basically he terribly embarrassed Kim Jong-un. And instead of going back to Hanoi, going back to Pyongyang via Beijing, meeting with Xi Jinping and telling him what agreement they came to and how this will benefit both China and North Korea, he had to bypass Beijing, and he had to clean shop when he came back. He was wary of threats to his power, and it was a tremendous embarrassment to him. And even then, he endeavored to meet with Trump one more time on June 30th of 2019 in the DMZ. So long story short is, in the end, the last letter of Kim Jong-un to Trump was, "Do you take me for a fool? Do you take me for a fool? How can you treat me this way? How can you continue doing troop exercises when you told me you would stop it," and so forth. So to be perfectly honest with you, if President Trump had conceded the election and treated Joe Biden in the way that Obama did with him, which is that when Obama met with Trump, the first thing he told him about is, "My biggest concern is North Korea." Well, likewise, had Trump conceded, he could have told Joe Biden, "I developed a relationship with Kim Jong-un. We've had some difficulty, but I want to introduce you to him. I will make every effort to pave the way so that you can meet with him, maybe in a third country location, and pick up where I left off." Well, that didn't happen. And then that put President Moon in a very difficult position. And when President Yoon was president-elect, he was in no position politically to be able to choose any other direction than the one that was thrust upon him. And so here we are today. So this is what's being discussed based on the Carlin Hecker article and also the Robert Gallucci article, which is that it's looking back at the last 34, 35 years, and it's saying this is a colossal failure.
Right.
And this is why there's the foreboding feeling that the whole paradigm of North Korea would never cross certain lines now means that maybe they will. And how, we don't know, but this is a very dangerous time. And as I believe I said on your program once before, everyone thought before October 7th that the Middle East was quiet.
All right. Well,
and now the place is burning in flames.
Dr. Berry.
So you just never know.
All right. Well, Dr. Berry, I'm very sorry, but with all due respect, we are running out of time right now. And it seems North Korea is no longer interested in coming out to the negotiating table because it was disappointed after the failure of the Hanoi summit. Is this correct?
I believe that's correct. And I think those authors that say that he's waiting for President Trump to be reelected, he's the last person he wants to become president.
Right.
He doesn't trust Joe Biden because Biden called him a thug in the debates in October of 2020. And he doesn't, President Trump is a crazy man who's only interested in himself from his point of view.
Right.
So that's why Carlin and Hecker say, they may go for broke. They may do things that are extremely risky because they have no choice.
All right, Dr. Berry, thank you so much for your opinion. Now, unfortunately, this is all the time we have for today's edition. I'd like to ask many more, but thank you, Dr. Berry and Professor Kim, for your time and insights today. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you for the time.
All right, that's all for Within the Frame tonight. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.